I'm not saying it's technically good, but it's fun. Okay, everybody, my last 6 or 7 videos I spent so much time in the 1970s, we needed something from the 1980s. So today, we are going back to check out 1982's The Beastmaster. But before we dig into this little gem, before we look at its history, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
It was foretold by witches. It was conceived through sorcery. And it was to be destroyed by all that is evil. But the courage of one mortal saved it. And so, into an age of darkness, in a time of mysticism, sacrifice, and plunder, there came the only light, the Beastmaster. Born with the strength of a black tiger, the courage of an eagle, the power that made him more than any hero. More than any lover. He was lord and master over all beasts. He was the Beastmaster. Behold the wonder. The horror, the fantasy, the challenge of the one warrior they called the Beastmaster. Marc Singer is Dar, Tanya Roberts is Kiri, Rip Torn is Maax, John Amos is Seth. Together they take us on a fascinating journey back into unexplored times. Conquer your fears. Face the unknown. And discover the incredible link between man, animal, and all that is phantasmagorical. In the world of dungeons, dragons, and Dar. The Beastmaster. The epic adventure of a new kind of hero.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by Coscarelli. Might not jump out at you, but I guarantee you, you know some of his stuff. We're talking he directed Phantasm 1. He directed, well, Phantasm 2. He actually even directed Phantasm 3. Come to think of it, he did Phantasm 4. And he did John Dies at the End, and he directed a gem of a motion picture that you gotta check out. Beyond weird, beyond bizarre, it is what it is. Bubba Hotep. Fucking, I don't even know what to say, but you gotta check this motion picture out. It is insane. And he actually, you know, wrote and did the screenplay for almost all these flicks. Not all of them, but a lot. So, did what he did. Career's what it was. Let's keep moving. Playing Dar, a name that might jump out at you, might not. Did a lot of cool TV work. We're talking Marc Singer. Anyway, in a lot of shit. Here we go. We're talking about he was in like The Rookies, in Hawaii Five-0, in The Contender, in Chips, and he was in Roots: The Next Generation, in Dallas, in Simon and Simon, in The Young and the Restless, in Arrow, in Beauty and the Beast. But for me, he will always be remembered for his role in V, the TV movie miniseries, blah, 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 and The Final Battle, and all that kind of stuff. I can't think of V without thinking of Marc Singer, just the way it is. Playing Kiri, the recently, sadly departed Tanya Roberts. Let's kick it. Anyway, she was in stuff like Sheena, and A View to a Kill, and Body Slam, and Sins of Desire. And on TV, she was on, you know, in Hotline, that 70s show, and a Barbershop. She was on Fantasy Island and The Love Boat. She popped up on Vegas, and she will always be remembered as one of Charlie's Angels. Let's face it, that's really probably her claim to fame. Other than this, it's Charlie's Angels. just the way it is. Rest in peace. Playing Maax, spelled with 2 A's instead of 1. Who knows why? Rip Torn. Yeah, folks, let's hit it. Obviously, he's been in some gems. We're talking about he has been in things like Coma, which I already reviewed here, and Airplane 2, and City Heat, and Beer, which is a forgotten gem from years ago, and Beyond the Law, and RoboCop 3, and Freddy Got Fingered, and the Wonder Boys, and Marie Antoinette, and Welcome to Mooseport, and Naked City, and I think his 2 things that he might be remembered for like the most is the Larry Sanders Show, where he was funny as fucking shit, and of course, Men in Black. Right then and there, folks, a career that will always be remembered. Okay, playing Seth. Here we go. John Amos. Let's kick it. We're talking about he was in stuff like Coming to America, obviously, and Lockup, and Die Hard 2, and Ricochet, and a gem of a movie from way back in the day called Let's Do It Again. That fucking shit was hilarious. And he was also in The World's Greatest Athlete, and he was on TV, Sanford and Son, and Maude, Future Cop, and Hunter, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Fresh Prince, and In the House, and he will always be remembered as James Evans, the take no shit dad from Good Times. Come on, man. Fucking Good Times. That shit was hilarious back in the day. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay, playing Zed. King Zed. Rod Loomis. Yeah. Here we go. Anyway, he was in a bunch of stuff on TV like The Doctors, in Vegas, and All in the Family, and Casino, and General Hospital, and Matlock, and Jake and the Fat Man, and Seventh Heaven, and Quantum Leap, and The Bold and the Beautiful, and he was even in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, dude. So, was out there, did a lot of work, popped up a lot, is what it was, just the way it goes. Let's move on. Finally, there's a group of little actors in this thing also that you should keep your eye out for. That pop in, pop out, are in it. Some to a degree, some lesser to a degree, whatever. But they're all people you might know. We're talking about people like Billy Jane. He was in stuff like, just one of the guys, and Cujo, and Ralph Strait, who you might remember. I mean, he popped up in like Halloween 3, and Ben Hammer. He was like, big, massive TV career. And Janet Jones, she popped up in shit like, the Flamingo Kid, and she was kind of like a almost it girl for a little while, then just disappeared, so who the fuck knows. But they're all in this. They all pop up. They all have a little place. It is what it is. Okay, everybody, I'm going to try to give you the story in 90 seconds or less to keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, so we can get going to where we'd rather be, the summation. Anyway, and give me a little bit of leeway with this, man, because this is going to be tough. Because everybody has ridiculous names, and the town they're in has ridiculous names, and the gods they worship has ridiculous... Give me a little bit of space on this. Okay, you got King Zed. He runs this place. I think it's Aruk is the way it is said. Anyway, he has this religious fanatical leader that's really challenging him for power. Rip Torn. And he has these 3 sexy witches. Well, their heads are all fucked up, but their bodies are like playmates, and hey, who can knock that? Anyway, they tell him that King Zed's child will grow up to kill him someday. Well, Rip Torn doesn't really like that shit too much, so he says, I'm going to have to get rid of this kid. I'm going to have to take out this child. Just at that point, King Zed comes in and says, yo, I hear you're doing some child sacrifice. He goes, yeah, and I'm going to kill one of yours. Doesn't go well. King has him arrested. But the witch goes off, and she takes his wife, the king's wife, and transplants the baby from her stomach to the stomach of a cow. Witchcraft. Next thing you know, she goes to sacrifice his child after cutting it out of the dreaded cow. And what happens? He is saved. He is saved by this wandering man who takes him in, raises him as his child, and puts him off in his camp and brings him to adulthood. But as a byproduct of being put inside that cow, man, he has a special fucking power. Dar can communicate with the animals. He can just speak to birds. He can speak to bears. He can speak to tigers. Oh my, whatever. Well, There's this group, the Juns, Huns, whatever the fuck their names is. They come in, they wipe out his village. He's the only survivor, basically setting him on the journey, setting him on the mission where he has to go out and seek revenge about the people who cost his villagers their lives. Killed his daddy, killed his fucking dog. They John Wicked his ass. That's some fucked up shit, folks. You don't fuck with somebody's dog. Anyway, he sets out. Along the way, he meets a hot Charlie's Angel. He meets a former guard, James Evans, that used to work for his dad. He befriends a tiger, some ferrets, a bird, and they set forth to seek vengeance for those who have wronged him. I'm not going to get much more into it than that. That's the kickoff point of this motion picture. You get the idea. Fuck it is what it is. Just roll with it. It's odd. It's weird. It's one of those flicks. Okay, everybody. What makes this motion picture work? And this motion picture works. There's flaws, but it works. This goes back to one of those grand times when they were doing this whole fucking slew that really got ushered in by Conan the Barbarian of sword and sorcery movies. Obviously, you had Conan the Barbarian, you had Conan the Destroyer, you had fucking, the warrior and the sorceress, and you had the sword and the sorcerer, and you had all these other fucking, really low budget ones, and you had this. And I always felt in my heart of hearts that the Beastmaster was always the second best sword and sorcery flick of all times underneath Conan the Barbarian. It was really different. It came at it from a different angle, and it was really not focused on some of the things that the other ones were focused on. Let me explain. This movie is not riddled with the stuff that the other movies were riddled with, as far as like gratuitous blood and tons of nudity, but at the same time it keeps enough of those things where there's several points in this motion picture where you look down at yourself and you say, wait a minute, they're kind of getting away with a lot for a PG flick. But that's a different time, and that's a different subject. You see, back in the 70s and 80s, PG movies really, you could get away with a lot of shit in them. I mean, there's several scenes of bare boobs floating around this thing. There's people being fucking hacked up with swords. Not that much blood comes out of them, but they are. There's scenes where you see like a boiling head in a pot. There's some violence, and there's a lot of children being sacrificed and thrown into fires. And you're like, man, this is a PG flick. People have to remember, really, until everybody got their fucking, ass in a bind about it, most PG flicks had a lot of leeway until people started getting mad at, like, Indiana Jones and the face melting at the end of it and all that kind of shit. And then, all the mom groups jumped the fuck in there and started screaming about these things are too violent for kids and all that kind of shit. And it kind of screwed things up in my eyes. It made that PG-13 rating that we got stuck with for a while, but it's basically all but fucking gone now. It was one of those times where you could really have a lot of leeway and a lot of play and have yourself basically an adult movie that kids could still watch, mostly. Now, is this, again, on the level of a Conan the Barbarian? No, not really. Is the directing good? Yeah, it's solid. Good enough. You've seen a lot of Coscarelli's fucking flicks before, so you get where we're coming from. The acting, you got a couple people that are good actors in this. You got John Amos, you got Rip Torn, you got a bunch of people filling in their spots. Is what it was, but it's solid enough for the kind of motion picture that it is. The writing, come on, man. You know how it was back then. You make one of these flicks, you dream up a bunch of fucked up names, you give everybody a name like R and Dar and Maruk and whatever the fuck it is, and you're off to the races. But the fun of this motion picture is, again, the story about a guy who is born the son of a king but doesn't know it and has this ability to speak to animals and use the woodland creatures or desert creatures or whatever the fuck we are in this movie, because it seems to jump all over the place, to his advantage as his friends, as his compatriots. He doesn't order them. They're kind of like just along for the ride, helping him out. And it's kind of cool to be playing that angle, which you didn't get to see that much of before. Plot holes, do they exist? They're all over the fucking place in this motion picture. Don't fool yourself. I mean, when Zed has Maax arrested for doing the whole child sacrifice thing, and then steals his fucking child later on, and then somehow later gets out of jail and takes over the kingdom. I mean, you wouldn't have just been put to... Wouldn't some shit... How did that fucking happen? You don't know. They don't explain it. Makes no sense. But don't question it. You just run with it. It's that kind of a movie. You can't dig too deep. And yes, there are things you're going to laugh at in this motion picture. I mean, let's face it. You know, some of the death guards and everything looking like they're dressed up in bondage gear from some South L.A. fucking sex shop. It's kind of funny. You know what I mean? The way that everybody's hair just happens to be laid out and feathered, and their makeup never gets fucked up in this barren wasteland. It is what it is. The fact that Kiri is rocking a set of cute little implants way back in that area of time, it's going to make you laugh. It was refreshing, though, that the lead, Marc Singer, was just a guy who got himself into really good shape and wasn't a ridiculously over-the-top, steroid-ridden fucking human being playing the role. Yes, I know, Conan, fucking Schwarzenegger, it was the right look for the right character and all that. But in a lot of those other movies, too, they just started getting guys that were, like, you know, just all jacked up on fucking roids that they could just give a sword to. And it started to look a little bit fucking comical. At least this one, he looks like a dude. Athlete, but a dude. Anyway, folks, in closing, if you get a shot and you haven't seen it, check out The Beastmaster. It's family fun, kind of. It's a little violent. Yeah, there's tits. There's witches that look like playmates and thongs. Whatever. But at the end of it, you still feel like you're watching kind of like a family flick. You know, something that is only a few stone throws away from, you know, Disney's Sunday night showcase flicks. I know it sounds weird. I know it doesn't make any sense. But it's true. But you can sit down and watch it and have a good time. Soak it in. Everybody could probably handle it. It's not too bad. It's not too gory. It is what it is. Okay, folks. Once again, and as always, it has been awesome. So, let me just say, be good. Take care of yourself. Be kind to a stranger. Help out a friend. Look out for family. And above all else, under no circumstances, ever take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.